Hello everybody, my name is Jeremy and welcome back to Kanto region, my Cities Skylines series based in Japan but kind of viewed through a fictional and romanticized lens. Hi, hello, welcome back to the show. Hope you're enjoying it, hope people are enjoying it. Obviously, as discussed in previous videos, I have been recording these kind of ahead of time. I'm a few episodes ahead of real life. So as far as I know, this is a wild success and people are going absolutely crazy for it. I hope that's the case. I hope my past self is correct and my future self is thrilled at the wild success that the Kanto region has become. Welcome to the episode. Right now, we are just kind of laying the base foundation of what we're going to be working on here. We are kind of still working our way up this hill away from the coast and trying to just figure out what the general vibe is going to be around here. It's kind of tough. It's tough to figure out exactly what level of detailing I should be doing on some of this stuff, just because it's very easy to get carried away. There's a lot of good Japanese assets available. I'm not really used to that. I feel like when I've done series in the past, it's been one of the big struggles is to find enough assets to do absolutely everything you want. And something interesting about Japan is that it seems like they've got a pretty active Cities Skylines modding community, or at least there's a lot of people who are like me and are just Americans who have had a fascination with Japan based on their interaction with Japanese media throughout their childhoods. And in any event, we have an awful lot of Japanese stuff to work with, so it's pretty easy to find yourself just kind of getting carried away as you work on what you thought was going to be just a small project and is pretty quickly teetering into quite a large one. We're still kind of on track here for the timeline that I thought we'd be working with for the Kanto region, but I don't know. I think we could pretty quickly see ourselves getting out of control here. I'm hoping that doesn't become the case. In any event, what we're working on here is kind of like a mixed little area. There is some residential, some commercial, and some industrial. Kind of an interesting little blend that that I see in this small town that I've been taking inspiration from, Afanato, which again, God help me if I do not know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think I am. But, it's kind of a small coastal city that, there's a lot of fishing industry around, and that seems to be kind of one of the main things that people do. And, that kind of lends itself to this interesting mix of building types, right? Where, you don't have a lot of, super wealthy people here. It doesn't seem like, anyway. So you kind of have this mix of building types so people can just kind of, live near where they work, right? And I imagine a lot of these, quote-unquote industrial buildings, they're not manufacturing anything in them. They're probably, warehouses for, people to store their fishing gear and, they're maybe even their fish. I don't know. There's going to be a fish market later in the episode, so I imagine that's where most of the fish is going the moment it's done being caught. But, your guess is as good as mine. Whether that's how they would work or not. So now we're kind of past that area, and we're kind of working on somewhat of a new little project here, which is a hotel. In the last episode, I built this kind of tourist center that's kind of on its way out of town, and now I'm trying to kind of work a little bit within that framework of thinking of this place as it is a fishing village, but there is some appeal to it. There is, some reason why people would come to visit. So I figured, why not build them a little hotel down by the seaside? There is a beach. There is a beach for swimming at. So people might come here as a kind of a little holiday. And, just thinking of it in context of the greater region, it makes some sense because, the other beach community is going to be Cinnabar Island, which is its own isolated island off the coast here, which, maybe thinking future plans way too far in the future, mind you. That's a much later gym. I was almost going to call it a temple, but it's a gym in the Pokemon games. It's a much later gym, so that's going to be a much later project in this series. But, just thinking ahead to that, maybe that'll be more of a kind of a luxury, sort of a wealthier island community where there's more like vacation culture. Whereas here, it's more fishing, but a little bit of vacation. This is kind of a place where, working stiffs can go on their summer vacation. People who have regular old jobs in Viridian City, maybe this is where they come for their beach getaways. That's a good enough lore, I feel like. We can live with that. But I just kind of trying to keep it simple here, just giving it a nice sort of a very decorative balustrade sort of a thing here, and a big pool next to it. I don't have any pool assets, I was surprised to find as I was working on this, so I decided to just use the vanilla one and just kind of take away most of what is there, and it worked out okay, I feel. It's a pretty decent asset, all things considered, considering it's like, I think it may be even a base game vanilla. I don't think it came with a DLC, but I could be wrong about that. Here you see me fiddling with a garage door, which I'm using the cinematic camera mod to get a closer look at. I think I'm used to some visual mod that doesn't exist anymore, maybe. There's something going on where I'm used to being able to zoom in a bit closer, and it does not appear that I can anymore. So, so I'm using the cinematic camera to get a pretty close look. If anybody knows what I'm talking about or thinking about, please let me know. I really don't know what it is that I forgot about, but I did forget about something. Something nice, by the way, in the Japanese creator community, somebody made this little dumpster area asset, which sits very nicely next to a building, but has the added bonus of actually working as a garbage facility, which is pretty cool. It gives you a way to spawn garbage trucks and have them, actually frequent an area that would make some sense for them to frequent, and you don't have to build any sort of a silly big garbage dump or, garbage processing facility to, to actually have them start doing what they're doing. You can always use a cube, and that's usually what I would do, but it's kind of nice to have the option of doing that. So over here, we're kind of working our way up this hill. It's kind of a hill between this main road and the river, and just using the Move It mod to kind of pull these houses up even a little bit higher than the road level. This is something I am seeing a lot in my research, if we could call it such a thing. Really just looking at Japan on Google Earth, something that I've done a lot in my life. But, something that you see an awful lot of is these houses that are kind of sitting above street level that are then kind of on top of these retaining walls. And so I was trying to find a way to do that here. I don't know that this was maybe the most successful iteration of it. I'm sure I'll get plenty more practice over the course of this project. But at least for now, it's kind of an interesting look that we end up with here. And I'm using these glass carport assets, which are... they're pretty nice, and I like that they actually have a parking space underneath them that causes cars to show up in these driveways. Took me a little while to figure out that that's why they were showing up and that's what was happening with them, but pretty cool all the same. And otherwise just using a lot of the same foliage. I've started using these, I think they're called Coastal Pines by Grey Flame, that a couple of them look pretty good for Japan, and I'm pretty happy with that because the number of trees that look specifically Japanese is fairly limited, and the number of trees in real life that look specifically Japanese is extremely high. So definitely looking for creative workarounds there. This house probably has my least favorite design to it. I think I probably didn't do the best job here of making that look particularly Japanese. I think the layout of the way that the way that the building kind of meets the road and the driveway and the entryway and whatever, I think it ends up kind of looking a little too American. But, it's okay. It's good enough, and it's going to disappear into the background pretty soon because a lot of development will happen around it, and then you won't even think about it too much. And that's what we like to see here on the Jeremy Thunder channel. And over here, working our way back down the hill with a new road that kind of connects this sloped road down to the waterfront. Something I'm having some trouble with and trying to figure out is just kind of what the actual logic of road networks in Japan, and specifically in Afanato, like what is the logic here? Like what actually is causing them to be the way they are? It's interesting because it is something that I very much pride myself on here in the United States is being able to look at the shape of a neighborhood and say pretty definitively, this is this way because of X, Y, and Z. I feel pretty good about my ability to see, for example, just like a weird section of new buildings where there's otherwise old buildings and say, there used to be a train there. I feel pretty good about my ability to do that. And in Japan, I feel like I'm in a foreign country. I don't know what I'm talking about here. But having fun building this all the same. I've never been to Japan, by the way. I'm sure, some of you are wondering whether or not I've ever been there. I haven't, and I don't know that I ever will. I'd like to, but it's really far away, and it's hard to get away. But I sure would like to see it one of these days. Now over here, we're back by the water, and I had this big, very conspicuous parking lot in the first episode that didn't really have any reason for being there, and this is why. Because I didn't get around to building this fish ramp, which is, it's the technical term for it, is fish ramp. But basically the idea here was I wanted to have somewhere that folks can bring their boats down to and unload them. It looks a lot on Google Earth like people just leave their boats down by the waterfront, which is pretty interesting. You don't really seem to get much of an impression that people are worried about somebody, say, stealing their boat. That's interesting to me. My American sensibility, of course, is to say everybody should lock their boat away so nobody steals it. So I built in a way for folks to, haul away their boat on a trailer if they so chose. Now over here we have this fish market. This is a place where it's right next to the waterfront, right next to the fish ramp. So when folks are done catching their haul for the day, they can just drag them right up here and sell them. And I tried to just kind of like put a little bit of decoration around it to suggest that there's, some activity, not a ton. This isn't a huge fishing harbor after all. It's just kind of a small town dock where, some folks make their money going to catch, I assume, nearby fish. I don't think they're doing a lot of deep water fishing out here. And now we're kind of back up at the top of the hill and working on another one of these kind of small farms like we saw in the first episode where, it's not a, industrial scale farm. It's just kind of somebody's own patch for selling locally, maybe even to tourists who are coming to Pallet Town. That could make some sense, couldn't it? And I'm using this retaining wall by Ronix that, I think it's like many of his assets, and like I discussed about the rural asphalt road in the previous episode, it is, it's fairly old now, but still pretty nice looking. The only thing you got to do with them, of course, is you have to use the node controller or the not node controller, the network multi-tool. You got to use that to reverse the segment at the end, because for some reason they have this weird behavior where the last segment of it is backwards. Not really sure why. Not sure what causes that, but it does it by default. I'm not really sure why, but if you use the segment control thing, you can reverse it, and it looks pretty nice. Looks all right, at least. And otherwise, just kind of giving it a little bit of detail, not too much, just kind of a little bit, just enough to just enough to make it look like I cared, and to look like somebody gave it a little bit of attention. And then putting a little bit of a warehouse next to it. Again, talking about this earlier in the episode, there's a lot of these sort of like mixed neighborhoods where you get like a little bit of a lot of stuff. And, this kind of made some sense to me. I'm trying to really force myself here, by the way, to put space between buildings and, give them a little bit of room to breathe. It's something that I'm really not used to. In Neptune City in particular, but also in Silla Republic, and also in Vogelstad, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm really used to having everything really bunched together because I'm working on, cities, and I'm working on, like, dense urban populations, and this is the first place that I'm really working on that is explicitly kind of supposed to be rural. This is supposed to be a small town. And, you do get clusters of bunched up buildings in these areas in Japan, but not a ton all over the place. And so I'm trying to really force myself to kind of change my ways a little bit. And speaking of changing my ways, I'm trying to end the episodes a little bit sooner so I remember to do all of my little plugs. So thank you so much for watching my show, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've been enjoying all of these episodes. And if you like them, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, comment, all that sort of stuff. Follow me on Twitter at JeremyThunder, and check out my podcast, Generation Loss. I'll see you next time.